You can tell a lot about a school based on the numbers. The graphs, the charts, the data, they all give some kind of narrative about a school community. Numbers and spreadsheets are fine for the reports and the accountability and the records, but they don't capture the actual energy of what's happening in our schools. They don't show the grit, the imagination, or the sheer talent that I see every time I walk through our buildings. I am Dr. Karamanos, proud superintendent of Leonia Public Schools, and this is Leading Leonia. This podcast gives an authentic look at the people who drive this community forward, our students who will change the world, our staff who are building the environments they learn in, and the community who's working right alongside us. We're here to show you the real work, the honest, the innovative, and the sometimes surprising work that it takes to build a school community we can all be proud of.
Lucky number.
Welcome back to our next episode of Leading Leonia. I'm Dr. Karamanos, superintendent here in Leonia, and today I have with me Mr. Servis. Mr. Servis is our Leonia High School vice principal, but I will shoot it right to him to start telling us a little bit about himself. So, Mr. Servis, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. Thanks for taking time out of your day. I know it's a busy high school, so.
Busy time of the year, too, yep.
Yes. It's June, so it is a busy time of year. Let's start off. Tell us who you are, what you do, the basics.
Who I am. Well, I see myself first and foremost, most recently as a dad. So I'm a dad to two children. Benjamin, 14, going to be a freshman in high school, and Eliana's going to be a sixth grader. I think the next way I kind of view myself is as a psychologist, which is what how I kind of entered my career in education as a psychologist. I see myself as a coach as well. I've been a coach for a long time at lots of different levels, recreation, high school. I've done many sports, wrestling, football, softball, volleyball. And then maybe somewhat surprising, I see myself as a vice principal, sort of like fourth in there. I'm still trying to get used to that role as a vice principal, but an educator. When people ask me, what do you do? I typically don't start off by saying I'm a vice principal. I usually say I'm an educator. That's the way I like to view myself as a professional. I'm an educator because coach, psychologist, vice principal, they're all educators.
Yeah, I agree. When people ask me what I do, I say I'm an educator because that's what I am, right? At the heart of what we do, we are educators. And whether you're a teacher, a coach, like you said, vice principal or superintendent, we're all here for the kids and educating kids. So, the vice principal's office, right? So you are a vice principal. Wait, before we get into the vice principal, I know you've been in Leonia for a long time, right?
Yes. So I started in my first role. It was December of 2005, and that was as the assistant wrestling coach.
Okay.
And then I'm trying to think that then somewhere in that spring of that school year, I started subbing, being a substitute. And then in January of 2007, I became the we had a position called the permanent sub back then for the middle school. So I would come every single day. I would just report, and I'd be there, 8 to 3, and I would cover whatever classes I could. And I did that for a year, maybe year and a half. I used to work in the summer as a paraprofessional in some of the self-contained special education classes. And then in September of 2008, they sort of invented a position for me. I had graduated, I had my school psychology degree, and I was ready to go on. In fact, I went on job interviews, I got a job offer, and the superintendent and some people at the time wanted to keep me in Leonia, but there was no school psychologist job open. So they created a position called the Learning Options Coordinator.
Oh.
And it's funny because that was 2008. And it's a job that in 2026 makes so much sense.
Honestly, you said it, and I was like, that's a really good idea. How do we get that at LHS?
Yes. In 2008, it didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I have to say, the superintendent at the time was a forward thinker.
Okay.
And he had this idea of kids learn in all sorts of different ways. Kids learn at different times. Kids have things that go on in their life that prevent them from, let's say, getting credit in a class. And so he had this idea of what if within the high school we had the ability to educate kids and get them credit in classes via like this combination of online classes with also a person in front of them helping. So my job as the learning options coordinator was to try to set that up. The problem was that in 2008, we didn't have a lot of options for virtual learning.
Right.
And so what we did have was a lot of pre-recorded lessons.
Okay.
And math was a big one. We did a lot with math. So I would sit with a kid in front of a computer and I'd hit play, and it would be this, I swear it would look like it was 1980. Teacher teaching a lesson, and then I'd pause it. Did you get it? Did we go over? And it was a lot of that. But because I had the psychology background, it also turned into a lot of counseling and things like that. And then at the end of that first school year, when I was the lock, a school psychology position opened. And they said, all right, we're getting rid of the learning options coordinator. And then I became a school psychologist. So I was the school psychologist here for a decade.
Yeah. And then from school psychologist, you went into?
I was the director of special education.
Okay.
I did that. I started in December. It was the person who was ahead of me, Karen Paretsky, who was my mentor. She retired like as of, let's say, January 1st. So I was able to get in there around December. And I did that for 7 or 8 years. I did that through the pandemic, which was a challenge.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep.
You know, it was difficult because everyone else was just sitting in front of a computer and doing their lessons somehow virtually, or the teacher was sending them. But we have a lot of special ed students that does not work for.
Right.
Then we had things like counseling and speech and OT, and that obviously does not work virtually. And so it was a challenging time. I will say, you know, the parents of those students who needed intensive therapies and things like that, they were understandable, and they were very cool about it. They knew that it wasn't the school district's fault. This was a worldwide pandemic. But I felt really awful because I knew kids weren't really getting the full services that they should get. And we did the best we could.
Right.
But that was challenging. And during that time, actually, it was during the pandemic, I'm sitting in my house, and I was really kind of unhappy, to be honest. Like, it was the first time that I remember thinking, I don't like this. Like, I don't like doing what I'm doing, because I always loved being in a school and coaching and originally I was going to be I have a master's degree in forensic psychology. I was going to go be a psychologist in a prison or something along those lines. But once I started coaching and working with, you know, adolescents and teenagers, I just got hooked, and I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do. So I sat there thinking, like, I don't like this. And then I started thinking, well, why don't I like it? What are the things that I don't like about it? And I was really so removed from kids.
Right.
That was my problem.
Yeah.
So I spoke to my wife and I said, I'm going to say something really crazy right now, but I think I want to go back to school again, because I've done a lot of schooling in my life.
Yeah.
And I want to get my degree to be an administrator. And I think I'd like to start off being a vice principal. And she supported me, and that's what I did.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you think about all the different positions in a district, right, there's positions that like when you're here, right, in my office, there's times where I could not even see kids, right? And that's the worst part of this job, is that you're just so far away from kids.
Yes.
But, you know, it's good that, you know, you got that administrative, you went back to school, you know, went back into the building. So, you know, the vice principal job, right? Vice principal, a lot of times when kids see the vice principal, they're going to the vice principal.
Yep. Oh,
Oh, you're shaking your head, and you know what I'm going to say, right? Yeah. People don't want to go to the vice principal.
Typically, no.
Yeah.
Typically, they know. One of the things I've tried to do is make it so that that's not the case. And some of the ways I've done that, actually, I can't take credit for the first way, but we stand outside the front of the high school every morning, or almost every morning. You're there with me, Mr. Calendar.
Yep.
And we greet every kid who comes through the building.
Every single kid.
And that's a great way to meet kids that I wouldn't meet the kids who are not being sent to the principal's office, who aren't having discipline issues. And so that was like the first stepping stone. And then, you know, just being in the hallways more, going to extracurricular activities, going to basketball games, wrestling matches, football games, just trying to make myself visible so that everyone can see me. I've been lucky enough since I've been here to go on 3 international trips, and that exposes me to even some of those kids I don't even see in the morning because they're in school before I am.
Right.
And so that exposed me to a whole other kind of cohort of kids that I would normally never have more than maybe just a passing in the hallway of saying hi.
Right.
Or at this point of the year, when we have award ceremonies and scholarships and National Honor Society, I would be seeing them almost for the first time.
Right.
Or hearing about them for the first time.
Yeah.
So I try really hard, and I rely on my skills as a counselor because I think I was really good at being a counselor to engage kids, figure out what interests them, and then try to, have conversations revolving around what interests them.
Yeah. So, thinking about Leonia High School, right? Mm-hmm. Walking down the hallway, it's a random Tuesday.
Okay.
What are you walking down the hallway? What's a typical Tuesday in Leonia High School like?
Typical Tuesday walking down the hallway is a bit of controlled chaos. Mm-hmm. There's the bell rings and you have almost 800 students filling the hallways. If you are a people watcher like me, you can get a lot out of just being in the hallway and watching.
Mm-hmm.
You can see who's fighting with their boyfriend and girlfriend. You can see who is stressed out about a test that's coming up or a test that they just took and didn't do well. You can hear which teachers the students say very positive things about, which staff members and teachers maybe kids are having issues with. You can find out all sorts of things about their peer groups. And then you can also, find out, because now I'm 44 years old, I'm sort of far removed from the popular culture of being a teenager. But if you pay attention and listen, you can hear what music are they listening to, what are they watching on YouTube, what social media links or videos and reels are popular right now. So you can hear a whole bunch of that stuff. So it's normal, just typical human behavior kind of things, but revolving around teenagers.
What are some things that spark? Like, what are, we talk a lot about like the great things that happen in our buildings. What are some great things, you're, again, typical Tuesday, you're walking the buildings. What are some of those spark moments that you're like, oh, wow, this is why I do what I do?
Yeah. I really enjoy when you hear kids, and I think if you're not in a school system right now and you especially don't have kids that are in a school system, there's sort of, I feel like almost like a negative attitude about teenagers and about kids. And I guess that existed to some extent always, right?
Right.
But it seems highlighted lately about, all they do, they're on their phones and they're using AI to do all their homework and all of those sort of negative things. But the thing that I like is, you will absolutely hear kids say, oh my God, that science class was awesome today. I'm talking in my old language. They would talk a little differently, but being excited about something they did in class, or being excited about something that's coming up. And it might not be academic. They might be talking about the prom. They might be talking about the spring fling or a concert, and just like. That's when you're like, when you see kids excited and happy to be in school and not just on their phone and not like fitting the stereotype of like an angsty teen. And when you hear that, and that's what makes me want to come to work every day. And I do, I legitimately want to be here. I don't, like I said, I had during the pandemic, that moment where I was like, I don't really like what I'm doing. I don't have that anymore since I've been, the vice principal of the high school. I really enjoy. On my best days, I'm excited to be here, and on my worst days, I'm like, it's still good to be here.
Yeah,
it could
right.
It could be worse.
It could be worse, right? So maybe a few years ago when the Anxious Generation came out, you did a few presentations for parents around that topic. What? Now you have a broader audience, right? Now we're on a podcast, this will get posted. If you could share one thing from that, or one big takeaway from the Anxious Generation right now, right? A little different than, 2 years ago when the book originally came out.
Yeah.
What would it be?
All right. Well, first of all, this is my topic. This is my topic of passion. So any one thing is going to be hard.
All right. If you need to give me 2 or 3, that's fine.
How many hours, Jeff? No. So interesting, just to backtrack once, I first gave the presentation of adolescent anxiety. It was the Wednesday before the world shut down for the pandemic.
Oh, wow. So
it was
March
of 2020.
Yeah.
and it was already a buzz about the pandemic. But I actually, interestingly enough, we had more parents at that one. I've done this talk now 4 or 5 times. We had more at that one, which was right before a giant pandemic. So this has been something I've been interested in a long time. I would say if I had to distill it down to a few things, there's a quote. It's sometimes attributed to Buddhism, and other times it's not attributed to anyone, but I use it in my presentation, and it's you have to prepare the child for the road and not the road for the child. Mm-hmm. And what I think of when I see that is, or when I read that quote, is that life is hard. Mm-hmm. Difficult things are going to happen. If our main focus as parents and educators is trying to make the journey as easy as possible for our children, we are setting them up for failure. We have to allow them to struggle, and we have to allow them to come up against obstacles, and honestly support them as little as possible so that they can be successful, so that they gain the skills that they need to not just succeed in school or at work, but in every facet of their life. And so when you prepare the child for the road, what you're doing is you're setting them up to be lifelong, to have success in a lifelong manner, and in a way in which they have the tools and skills even when you're gone and when their main support systems might not be there to get over obstacles. And I think, then fast forward 4 years later, and the anxious generation talked a lot about that, and about how this mentality, we used to have 2 decades ago, we called them helicopter parents. And they would sort of hover over their kids and make sure they were doing their homework and not getting in trouble and doing the right sports. And Jonathan Haidt talks about the bulldozer parents, which are trying to smooth out the road in front of their child so that they don't have any obstacles. And it's had really disastrous effects for an entire generation of kids. I know everyone wants to vilify cell phones and social media, and certainly those are issues, certainly.
Yep.
But all the problems that I see as vice principal of a high school that have to do with, let's say, social media or have to do with cell phone usage are really the result of kids not having coping mechanisms. And you can't blame a cell phone or TikTok for kids not having coping mechanisms. You have to blame the adults in that kid's lives that didn't give them those coping mechanisms. And those are parents and educators. Those are the two main people that, or groups of people that kids spend the majority of their time with. And so that's the biggest thing. If I could distill it down to one thing, is allow your kids to struggle. In fact, invite struggle into their life. And there are a lot of cool ways to do that. Sports is one of my favorite ways to do that.
Yeah. What about for our non-athletic groups?
So for certainly competition is important, and competition doesn't have to be sports.
Right.
You see at Leonia High School, we have all sorts of competitive things that don't involve sports. We have DECA, which is a sort of marketing business component. Our music kids compete.
Right.
There is, again, we go through these like waves in America where there was this time where like competition was bad. We don't want to promote competition. I think that's a huge mistake. I think competition is like one of the main ways that young people learn coping skills and learn things like how to lose, how to win graciously.
Yes, right. Sportsmanship, right?
Sportsmanship, how to work together, how to be coached. And when I say coached, it doesn't necessarily have to mean a sport, Taught is another way of saying it, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, I like to, I have a video at the end of my presentation. And I stole a line from another psychologist that says, what we want to be doing with our young children is dangerous things safely. So, I have a video of, it's all my own kids doing things like, from the time they were this big, whitewater rafting and skiing and wrestling, things that require physical strength, mental strength, emotional strength, and doing it in a way where there is support. it is a little bit dangerous, right? You go skiing and there is absolutely a chance you could get hurt.
Absolutely.
You know, but doing it, not just saying, okay, I'm going to take you to the top of the tallest mountain on your first time and just like, good luck. No. Like systematically building the skills that they need to be successful, and then eventually letting go and letting them do that thing. And then when they fail or they get hurt, then walking them through how do you deal with that. And if you do that and you allow your kids to do dangerous things safely for a long enough time, what you'll turn around and find is your kids are quite capable of handling all sorts of situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. When Mr. Dunn was on the show, he was the last episode. He shared something similar about, I had asked, like, how do you balance, the mental health of students, right? Because there's a lot of research around mental health and, how it's drastically changing over the years. But how we balance that with also making sure that, they're striving for more and they're not just staying status quo because that's where they feel comfortable, right? So getting kids outside of their comfort zone. And he said something similar about competition, and he was like, competition is good.
Yes.
Competition is good, right?
I believe that.
Yeah, because it productive failure, right? Productive struggle. Yeah. And then constantly, like, I love that you mentioned sportsmanship and the idea of knowing how to win, right? Because you see kids win, you see anyone winning, and you're like, oh, I'm really embarrassed for them right now because they're winning and they're not being very gracious. Yeah. So, on a similar path, right? Like, oftentimes we see, especially in your role as vice principal, we see students make mistakes, right? We know this as educators. We know that there's a moment a kid, decides to take this action instead of this action, and it's probably not the best choice, right? That leads to maybe something in the code of conduct, or, in some cases, something that results in a HIB. But if you could honestly tell parents, like, in that, when you're having those conversations with parents and you're talking to them, like, what would you tell them in those moments of, like, we're here, we're at this table, your kid did this?
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's obviously there's a range, right, of things that I would be talking up to a parent about that their kid did something wrong. Right. So with that being said, if it's something more minor, my message is, they're a kid. They're gonna mess up. Mm-hmm. First of all, adults mess up all the time.
Right.
All the time.
Right.
So them messing up is not the end of the world. It's not going to ruin their life. The number one question I get when I have to suspend a student, you want to take a guess?
Is this on their permanent record?
Is this on their permanent record? Yes. Is this going to go to their colleges? And usually the answer is no. But sometimes I feel like saying, so what?
Right.
So what?
Right.
Maybe it will. And maybe they won't get into that college because they made a bad decision. What a great opportunity for you to teach your child that how important it is to think through things, to make rational decisions. But I think, so what I try to tell them is mistakes are not a big deal. Mm-hmm. Making the same mistake over and over is a big deal.
Right.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's different, right?
And so it's like, how can we learn from this? How can we take this moment where you're embarrassed, you're angry, you're upset, and how can we turn this into a moment where we learn? So so your kid never makes another mistake again, but that they don't make the same mistake again. And I try to do that with my own kids. My own kids have gotten in trouble and made mistakes, and I tell them, listen, I'm not mad at you. I need you to articulate to me why that was a bad decision and how we can avoid making a similar bad decision like that in the future. You're going to make other bad decisions, and that's okay. We'll take them as they come. And also that one act or one moment or one day does not define who you are. Mm-hmm. It's who you are is a culmination of all of your actions and your growth. Mm-hmm. How have you grown? I mean, we have kids now who are seniors who, when they were freshmen, they were in my office every day.
We were just talking about one at the scholarship, and I said, remember this student when they were freshmen? And we both were like, yeah. And now completely different child. And,
completely.
But that's the beauty. And listen, if your kids can't fail in school, or your kids can't make a bad choice in school, where there's a safe environment for them to learn, where are they going to do it?
Correct.
Right.
And now here's the great thing: that kid that went through 2.5, 3 years of making lots of mistakes and having to learn lots of lessons, if you give me that kid, or you give me the kid who every time there was a little bit of issue, mom and dad came in and saved them. And then you said, now you have to bet on one to be a successful adult. I'm taking the kid who got in trouble a lot in the early years and learned over the kid who never had to deal with it because mom and dad and the school just kind of always made it go away.
Right. The bulldozer. Yeah. Right. That goes back to the original, the bulldozer. So we went through none of these questions, which is great because we had a great conversation. So that's fine. But a few things I did want to, kind of thinking about Leonia High School and just your role as the VP and just in general, just kind of bringing it back to Leonia. So if there was, if you had a magic wand and you could do anything you wanted in the high school, what would you want to see more of?
That's a good question. Magic wand. I think we have to, and I'm going to say this, I don't have specifics and I don't have specifics for a reason, but I think we have to have at some point, education in Leonia and worldwide has to have some sort of dramatic shift. We tend to have small incremental shifts, which is good because that means we're stable. But when you see what's going on with AI in particular, and with the way that we have access to information, and you realize that we have essentially the foundation of a school day has not changed much in a century. I think we need some sort of dramatic shift. And that's hard because no one wants to be, or a lot of people don't want to be the person that makes that dramatic shift, because with that dramatic shift comes, and you would know better than most, there's going to be a lot of, why are you doing this? You can't do this. This isn't the right way to do this.
Right.
But if I had the magic wand, I would probably wave it to say, we're going to make some really fundamental changes to the way we're educated, and everyone's going to be okay with it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that kind of where we're looking at building a profile of a graduate to focus our attention more on the skills than the content, right? What skills do we want kids of Leonia and Edgewater, like residents of Edgewater, to leave our schools with? In the other episodes, we talked a lot about like the critical thinking and collaboration and the ability to analyze that our kids, the graduates that we've had on the show, and then also teachers that we've had on the show, feel like we do a good job here in Leonia of doing that already.
Yes.
That I think the profile of a graduate will help us like kind of steer us all in the right direction and focus more on skills and characteristics of humans than content, right? Because we can get social studies, science, ELA, like we can get content instantly. We can watch any video, we can watch anything online. But it's how do we then conceptualize that and how do we make something out of it? That's where the shift should be. So now opposite of that, what would you like to see less of?
Well,
or none at all.
We're going to see less cell phone uses.
We sure are.
In school.
We sure are.
Because for those that don't know, there is now going to be there is a New Jersey state law that will start in September that says we have to have a cell phone ban, which is going to be a big change, especially for Leonia High School. I'm sure it's different from district to district depending on how you were using the cell phone, but the philosophy in Leonia has always been, since I've gotten here in 2005, has always been we try to give the students as much responsibility as possible.
Right.
We're open lunch when you're a freshman. We tell them, okay, it's lunchtime. You can go anywhere you want.
Right.
But you have to be back in time.
Right.
Because if you're not, there's a consequence.
Right.
And we have had a similar approach with the cell phones. You can have them and you can use them, but here are guidelines. And if you break those guidelines, there's consequences. But now the state is telling us no.
Right.
No cell phones.
No cell phones.
So we're going to see a lot less cell phones, and it'll be interesting. I think it'll be a net positive.
So too.
I think it'll be like anything. There'll be growing pains in the beginning.
Right.
And like 4 or 5 years from now, we'll probably, if we were to do another podcast, we'll probably say, I can't believe we used to have cell phones in school.
Right. I can't believe kids used to walk around the building with cell phones. Yeah.
It'd be normal not to have it.
Not to have it, right.
And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Listen, I think so too. I mean, we don't need to be connected to everyone all the time, right? We can focus and pay attention and, kind of talk to each other, right?
Yeah. And like, listen, kids are still going to know how to use technology.
Right. We're not taking away the technology, right? It's just the daily, or the in-class and the cell phone use, that can lead to other things. That's what we're trying to minimize. So, all right, good. Less cell phones. If you were a student at LHS, you were any grade, any academy or non-academy, whatever, you're whatever situation you want to be in as a student at LHS, whose classroom would you want to sit in?
Ooh, good question. Now, is this just an open-ended question? Does it have to do with the subject, the teacher? Okay.
Just whose class would you want to see?
All right.
As a kid. You got to tell me why, but.
Okay, yeah. I'm trying to narrow it down to 2. So
well, I love that you have a lot in your mind, because that means we've got a lot of great teachers.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to go with this. I had the pleasure of doing an observation this year of Tony Penn's class, orchestra class.
Okay.
And it was amazing. Mm-hmm. It was so good. Now, the reason why I asked, does it have to do, I can't play an instrument to save my life. I have no musical bone in my body at all. But I likened to what he did, and I told him this as to a coach, and I have a lot of experience coaching, and the ability to take little tiny parts, work on them, build skills, then take those skills and do it in a smaller group while there's other kids over here doing the similar thing in a different group, and then eventually bringing it all together, the skills that you need to do that. And the way he does it with humor, which I enjoy, and he does it with grace and understanding and patience. I was thinking in that observation, like, man, I can't play an instrument, but I would love this class. Like, the way he is doing this is just, it's like art, it's really, really cool.
That's awesome. Do you have another one, or is that?
I was going to say Mr. Cullen.
Okay.
Because Mr. Cullen has read every book that's ever been written.
Right. Yeah.
And I enjoy reading, and I enjoy knowledge, and I enjoy that sort of, I don't want to say old school style because that might be offensive, but the style of teaching and learning where the instructor has all the knowledge and is imparting it into a way, and you can just listen and hear stories and hear experiences. I also like that. It's not as popular of a style anymore in teaching, but I like that, and I would really enjoy hearing his stories about, his personal stories, his stories about books he read and things like that. Yeah. Mr. Cullen. So my next question to you is going to be, who's next on the podcast? Okay.
And Mr. Cullen is one of the guests that somebody else had mentioned to come on the podcast soon.
Yeah.
So you can't use him.
Nope.
But I'm excited to have him on because, he's a great storyteller, and the things he comes out with, like in our promo video, like unprompted in that promo video, just said this like really philosophical quote. And I was like, the woman was like, did you plan this? I was like, no. I was like, that's just who he is. He's just got so much knowledge.
Yeah, the Michelangelo quote.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
How did you get that to come out? And he said it was always there. Yeah, he's great. And that's why
our job is to make it come out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I would like to be a student in his class too.
That's great. All right. Who should be next on our podcast?
All right, I thought about this a little bit. How about, I'm going to go outside the high school. I'm going to go to another building.
Good. We like that. We got to broaden our horizons.
Yeah. How about Tim Ryan?
Okay.
Tim Ryan is a graduate of Leonia High School, grew up here his whole life, was a fantastic student, fantastic member of the community, fantastic athlete. He has now become a fantastic educator, a coach of the year, a person that so many kids see as an advocate, as an ally, as a mentor, as a coach. He just has this great energy, and he's always smiling. I've never seen him look upset a day in his life. And I knew him when he went here, so I've known him for a long time, and I think he's just starting now to blossom as like one of the star educators in our district. Yeah,
that's a really good guest. I would love to have him on the show. So, and he's usually around all summer, so I know he lifeguards here, and he's so we could definitely get him in the summer. No, that's a good one. Good choice.
Thanks.
All right, now our final question. We ask this to all of our guests.
Okay.
This project started as just a little star on my whiteboard as on a to-do list, right? And it turned into like one of the big projects that we had, and this was like the goal of the year. What is your star on your whiteboard right now? What is your next big item, big dream?
I'm going to go back to something I said earlier. It is to at least start the conversation about how can we make some big fundamental changes to education. I'm not smart enough or arrogant enough to think that I have any of the answers, or that I like. If you press me right now, I would honestly say I can't even come up necessarily with one thing, but I know we have to do it. Right? It's like I can't prove it, but I know it's true. I know we have to make some big radical changes in the way we educate our kids within the next decade, or we're going to be left behind, and someone else in the world will figure it out, and then we'll be behind them. So if I had that star on the whiteboard, it would be just to get these conversations going, how, get the smart people in the room, the experienced educators, the new educators, and what are some things we can do to make some big radical changes to the way we're educating our kids, so that we are ready for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah. That sounds like a great goal for us next year, Anthony, or Mr. Servis.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, that's all I have for you. Any final thoughts? Any questions?
No, I think this is awesome. Thanks for having me on. It was a great conversation. I look forward to hearing all of them.
Yeah, thank you. This was a great episode, and we will catch you next time.